on 95.3 FM in Windhoek, Desert Radio. The Bold Voice.
John Cullen, and of course Lana. It is a windy Monday morning, so if you haven't left the house yet, do make sure to just catch a jersey or sweater or something because it's a bit chilly as well. Now, as we mentioned earlier in our news, the Namibian nation has once again been plunged into mourning after the death of former Trade Minister Immanuel Ngatjizeko. Now, as part of our tribute to the late minister, we are joined by his former personal assistant, John Walenga, via telephone. And for those who just tuned in, please note that we will run a full obituary of the late minister at 9 o'clock soon after the breakfast show. Good morning, Mr. Walenga.
Good morning, sir.
How are you this morning?
Very well. How are you doing?
Good. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, sir. Now, speaking about the late minister, we heard of his passing over the weekend, of course, and we do understand that you did, of course, have a relationship with him, seeing that he was your personal assistant. But can you perhaps just talk to us a bit more about the relationship that you had with your former boss?
The relationship, in a true sense of the word, was that of a father and a son. I was doing almost everything that a father would assign his son to do. And I did so without any hesitation. And if you knew who Ngatjizeko was, quite as he was, a man of few words, so we'll only talk to you if you are missing the point. Otherwise, if you are doing as he expects you to do, he wouldn't bother.
No.
And it's a great loss to the nation, really. He literally is the one who taught me anything I know about business and everything I know about politics. He taught me how to navigate between politics and business without compromising on the other. And that's how I would describe the relationship.
Now, just give us a little bit of insight as to who he was away from the workspace. I'm sure you spent plenty of time with him, work-wise, outside of work. So just paint us a little picture of who he was outside of the workspace.
Ngatjizeko actually never lived two lives. What you see during office work and off duty is the same person. And he was a very disciplined person, not tribalist at all. That's one thing one can never ascribe to Ngatjizeko. For him, it was about what a person is able to deliver. Your color, your creed or religion was never an issue to him. Yes, he was very much religious. He was as you probably know, that he used to work for the Council of Churches. And that's where we met, by the way, at the Council of Churches. And discipline was his thing. So it's really a great loss.
And you also just mentioned that he taught you everything that you know about politics and business, right? So just speak to us a little bit about, how you think he contributed to Namibia politically as well as in the business sense.
Okay. Let's start with the politics. I don't know how old you are, but the first ever SWAPO meeting that took place in the north 1978. He was one of the few leaders who traveled all the way from Windhoek to address that rally. And you know, that was during the war, and it was not easy for a non-Oshiwambo speaking person to travel all the way from here to, from Windhoek to come here to the north. He did that out of conviction, of course. And in the end, that rally ended up being chaotic. It was disrupted by the then regime. And, people scattered, going into all sorts of directions. Now, can you imagine for people like Ngatjizeko who have never been to the north before, where would they run to? So, but they succeeded. That rally actually just ended up being the turning to the struggle. And the rest is history, as they say. He continued to be one of the icons during the struggle, being in the leadership of the party. And that's how we connected during rallies. And you know, rallies, strategic meetings normally used to take place after working hours. So you would meet in this and that house. And his house was one of those strategic points where people used to meet. And like I said, those days, especially during the struggle, we were meeting as activists. And there was no Oshiwambo speaking Damara or German or English. And this is where we used to meet people like Helmut Ruppel those days. The late Anton Loboski would come. They would come to Katutura and strategize on the way forward, basically. He has contributed, he has done but politically speaking. Now, in terms of business, everything that you see today being ascribed to Swapo Party, any type of business you see there today, it came through his fingers. And that's where some of us also hone our knowledge about business. And it was behind his tutelage that we have become who we are today. And we're many.
Now, Mr. Walenga, you mean you mentioned that you don't know how old we are, and we are quite young, so the stories that you're telling us now are, somewhat new stories to us. But people that are in our generation, myself and Alana, as young people, what can we learn from the life and the contributions that Mr. Ngatjizeko made to this country?
A lot, actually. The key thing is to be disciplined. Discipline is everything in life. In my other life, I used to work with artists. And my way of judging an artist has never been the talent. It's the will and the discipline. The point is, if you are talented without discipline, you are a nobody in the art sector. If you are indisciplined in any given choice of profession, you being a journalist now, and you are not disciplined, it's just a matter of time before reality hits you. And normally, if you look closely, even those who have come before you as journalists, the indisciplined one, their stories are everywhere. You just have to talk to senior journalists in your newsroom. So the key thing is discipline, and stand for what you believe in. That is not to say that you should not take instruction from your seniors. Dedication is one thing that is a hallmark for success for anybody. And, Ngatjizeko stood for all that. And I truly want to believe that's the only reason why I survived around and being under his tutelage, because he never tolerated indiscipline.
And then lastly, Mr. Walenga, before we leave you, what are you going to miss about your old boss?
Basically everything, my brother. Everything. Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then just a final message. Do you have a final message for the Ngatjizeko family? Any words that you want to share with them before we let you go?
You see, people like Ngatjizeko did not live for families. Ngatjizeko's loss, excuse me, is not to the family. It's the whole nation. And they are just part of that nation. So the message remains the same.
Okay. All right, Mr. Walenga, thank you so much for making time for us this morning and just speaking to us a bit about the late former Trade Minister Immanuel Ngatjizeko.
Thank you very much.
All right.